You were like,
where's my wife? And what have you done with her?
And I've never felt so empowered.
You're like, yeah.
Start pounding my chest. Okay,
I'll try to get that on camera next time.
Bringing it back. You want to get closer to me?
I want to get next to you. Know that song?
No, I don't know that song.
Who sings
Yes,
it?
I know that song. I don't know. I'm not good at stuff like that.
Rolls Royce.
Yes.
Dream when... No, hold on.
Please don't.
You go sailing
Please
by.
don't.
Whenever your
Please don't.
eyes meet mine. You're so fine. And girl, you make me feel so insecure. Here we go. Guys, we are back on the couch.
Home series.
I got your podcast guest, favorite podcast guest.
I wouldn't say that, but
My wife.
thanks.
Better
Thank
half.
you.
The girl who saved me from the streets.
I really
You
did.
pulled me out, babe. Whoa.
I did. Or no.
It was hard out there. I've never really talked about that, but it was hard out there in the streets.
How hard?
I'll find out later. Okay. Today,
Hello, Chicago.
we're going to be talking about growing pains. Because we know how that goes. There you go. Oh, still star of the show, man. Whoa. Star of the show. Lay down, play.
Okay, lay down, Papa.
Today, we're going to be talking about something that is funny now. But it was,
not funny.
funny back when. Let me tell you, boy.
I mean, it's something that we still struggle with, I would say.
It was World War III.
But yeah, it's
World
easier,
War
manageable.
Growing pains. Who can relate? And we're going to try to give you guys some helpful tips that at least helped us. And so, yeah. Okay, so EP, how do you want to start it?
I think for us, it was when we realized we were the one.
Mm-hmm.
And when you realize you found the one, it's just not a fairy tale from that moment. And a lot of people think that once you find the one, everything is just so easy from that point out. And it's really where and when the work begins.
Mm-hmm. Different kind of work.
Yeah.
Harder work. Got to be consistent work. Flash in the pan doesn't fly here.
No. And you have to have patience. You have to, there's just so much that goes into it. And I think that was my struggle with you during our developing of our relationship, is I knew what it meant to be in a serious relationship. And I knew that there was work that entailed behind it. And I didn't think that you had that same mindset, nor were you ready for it.
That's how you felt? Mm-hmm. Probably true. Well, I'm looking at your outline here, and it says finding the one doesn't mean it's a fairy tale. From there, it's honestly when you really have to put the work in. You found someone who inspires you to bring the best version to the table.
Your best version to the table.
Yeah, and we all have things to improve on. So with that outline, let's start with the reverse factor, because you exposed my flaws. Before I can even get to bringing the best version of myself out, let's talk about the flaws that were. You had some too.
Of course. Everybody has things to improve on. And I think that when you get into a relationship is when you really are forced to look in the mirror. And there's a lot of things that I saw in myself that I was doing in the past that I didn't recognize it until you and I had moved in together. And I was like, whoa, like some of the things that you were doing to me and I didn't like, I was like, wait, I used to do that to my roommate, you know? And I think that's when I was really like, that doesn't make me feel good. So I don't want to do that to somebody else.
Yeah. And that's great that you recognize that. You know, they say that when something really annoys you and bothers you, it's usually a reflection of things that you're trying to improve or change about yourself. When you have all these flaws, it's like, for me, the light at the end of the tunnel, which is what you outlined, which is bringing the best version of yourself to the table. Yeah. That light was so far down that tunnel that I was like, oh man, it's gonna take a while, you know. Yeah. But luckily, we were in a long distance relationship, meaning the luck part of it is that you didn't really see a lot of the stuff, you know,
that you were dealing with.
Yeah. So I tried to hurry up, knowing eventually we're going to live together, you know.
I think too, the difference between you and I at that time is I had already done so much work in myself where I felt like I was ready to be in something super serious. Yeah. And I was at that point, whereas to you, I think you were just starting that journey. So when we met each other, like when I met somebody that I knew that I wanted to pursue that kind of relationship with, I knew I was ready. Yeah. When you met me, I think you had, as much as you wanted that in your life, you were like, oh, am I really ready for it? Like, it might be the perfect girl, but the wrong time type of situation. So you had to speed up your process.
Well, I can tell you exactly when I had the moment of realization, like the old me wasn't going to fly here. That's when I had the realization that as much as I want a wife and a family, at that point, in that particular moment, I was like, damn, the idea is fun, but this is a lot of work. And
can I ask you when you had that realization? Like, how far in and what triggered that moment?
We were arguing. Arguing.
Remix.
It never gets easier. Just people know it never gets easier. We were arguing about buying a dresser together and then getting a dog together. Okay. And at this point, I had moved across the country, left everyone and everything I loved to give this a real shot. And you were arguing about whether we should get a dresser together and whether we should get a dog together. And I remember at that point in time, I was like, okay, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, because the old me would have just said, oh, well, I'm buying the dresser, we're getting the dog. And at this point, I was like, it's not just up to me anymore. And that was a very hard realization for me, to be like, I have to share. I'm basically an only child. I was raised like an only child. And I'm like, I'm not used to sharing. I'm not used to not getting my way. I'm not used to arguing my point and still not getting my way.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So
that is still a struggle of yours.
That was my moment of like, okay, this can be a lot harder than I thought. Yeah. The idea was fun. I thought it was just going to be all smooth sailing, you know, once I moved in, and, you know, that hard reality. And here's the thing, like for everyone has a different hard reality. Mine happened to be not so much about the dresser and the dog, but it was like, well, why are you feeling like we're not ready in our relationship to get a dresser or a dog? Yeah. I moved across the country. If you're not ready to get a dresser or a dog, I shouldn't have moved. Yeah. And this is in my head, right? So again, everyone's got their own little, you know, situation and examples, but that was mine. And that was the moment, like I said, I realized this was going to be a lot harder. But I think the bigger thing that I realized during those moments were my triggers. And later down the road, I realized through a ton of therapy, my traumas. And through triggers and traumas, I realized again, I had my work cut out for me. And I don't know if I've ever told you this. I don't think I have, but I'll share it now. That point in time in our relationship, I was aware rather of how far back I was from where you were, maturity wise, growth wise, self-awareness wise. I was like, damn, like she is like a couple miles ahead of me. And like she's driving and I feel like I was walking, you know, I felt like I was so far back. You know, it was one of those things where I was like, damn, like hopefully she can either slow down or I can really speed up and catch up. But I knew a lot of my stuff was going to take a lot longer than I would have liked, and I'm sure you would have liked.
Yeah. And I condemn you for pushing forward, because sometimes with anything, when it seems too hard and you seem too far behind, and people easily get discouraged and give up.
Yeah.
And just think that it will be easier to move on with something else, maybe less, difficult.
And my thing, if someone's out there listening or watching, like, well, what made you not want to give up? At that point, I had felt that way before in the past, and I did give up. So a large part of me was like, I'm just going to try this. Like, I'm just going to, again, I had that whole epiphany from my, one of my therapists in February 2017, which was like 3 months before we met. He just kept telling me, like, Justin, you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and he taught me that fully committing in a relationship can ultimately still be a win-win, even if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. And
so once I made that conscious decision to just give it my all, it was a constant reminder. It was like a motto for me early on in our relationship of like, I have to just stick at this, because if it doesn't work out, at least I know I tried. At least I know I was capable of doing what I never have done before. And now I have the tools to, maneuver for the next relationship, should there have been one. So yeah, so I think that's important to address. But again, the triggers and traumas are a huge part of growing pains.
Absolutely.
Because what's very little to you might be really big to me, which, and vice versa.
Yeah. And I think just holding space for the other person, of understanding why they could be feeling the way that they're feeling, is really important, because there was a lot of times where I really took some of the things that you were triggered by, and I looked deeper into it. And I was like, because sometimes what you're triggered off of could then trigger me. And then we're just kind of throwing fire at fire, and nothing gets resolved that way. And I think that we just have to, it's important to just take moments to ourselves and really process what we're feeling individually, and then what the other person could also be feeling.
Yeah, because I actually think we were doing that for a while. I think we were throwing fire on fire.
Yeah.
That's important context to bring up, because you and I were, prior to meeting each other, and still kind of are, so very like independent mode, like survival mode, and I'll do it, I got it. Like, it's hard for us to trust people. So not only were we throwing fire on each other's fire, not being aware of how we fight, how we communicate, how we need to communicate, we weren't really aware that I've been conditioned and trained to do everything by myself, and so were you. So what happens with that is we were pulling apart from each
isolating.
other, as opposed to going towards each other. And that was still kind of apparent today. It's a lot better now. But early on, that was not the case.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely realized a lot of triggers and traumas, and even like my being able to recognize my inner feelings, like on a deeper level, was a challenge for me, because for me, with us being long distance, and then you deciding to move here, that was a lot for me.
Yeah.
And if I was really honest with myself or with you in that in those moments, I wasn't ready. And I think that caused a lot of like bickering on my end. And
you think resentment?
I mean, eventually resentment built up over time, but that's why I think in the beginning, when we're talking about what you're bringing here, and you are bringing your towels, and I know that your towels are brown.
Okay, honey. They
Tan.
weren't all brown.
There was an orange one.
No.
We still have the orange
There
one.
was a
I could bring it out. I'm
Listen.
happy to bring it out.
First of all, majority of those towels are from Restoration Hardware.
Yes.
It's not like I had some gym towels.
No, he didn't.
From LA Fitness or something. You know what I'm saying?
And just to further my whole disclaimer is, it wasn't even about the towels. I think I made it about the towels, and it really bothered me that you were bringing your towels, because I'm so meticulous. I like to have the same color towels, like consistency and everything. But when I really allowed myself to dig deeper in that feeling, it had nothing to do with your towels. Right. It was more so, and even us fighting about the dresser, it was more so, I wasn't ready to live with somebody. I had never lived with a guy. And then to have the pressure of not just moving in from, you lived, 15 minutes away, but the pressure of you moving from Chicago to LA, away from your family, your daughter, that was just weighing so heavy on me. And I think it it surfaced a lot of deep feelings for me, and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to process it. So I made bigger issues out of the smaller things.
And it's perfect that you said that, because when we were, kind of outlining tonight's episode structure, we were realizing that it's not even about, like you said, the dresser. It's not about the dog. It's not about the towels. There's always a deeper rooted issue there.
Absolutely. More times than none, when you're arguing with your partner about something, it's never about the surface topic. It's always something deeper, and being able to identify that within, whether it's a trigger or a trauma or just a deeper feeling that you're having, being able to recognize that and just process it before you react to what you guys are fighting about, I think is so important.
It's so important. And I hope a lot of people, if you take away anything from this little part of it, take that away. Yeah. Because, when he's yelling about, you didn't take, the dry clean, whatever the hell little thing it is, I promise you it's not even about that.
And honestly, like, it took me a while to realize that that's what it was for me. It wasn't about the towels. It wasn't about the dresser. Him and I went back and forth for a long time about the towels, the dresser, the dog. And again, if I was just able to recognize and filter through my emotions in that moment, I could have been able to identify that it was never about those things. And it was more the fact that I just wasn't being honest with being ready for the steps we were taking in our relationship.
And me too. I mean, I was throwing fire on your fire. I was like, look, these are my towels. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are, I want to put these picture frames up, and this is my furniture, whatever. And it for me, it wasn't even about all the above. It was just the fact that, like, can you not see I've made so far in our young relationship the biggest sacrifice? Like, why are we arguing about this? Like, there's so many more bigger things to be concerned about, and we're stuck here. We're holding ourselves back. But, hindsight now, here we are 3 years later, almost in May.
Now it's definitely a funny thing, and it was something that we both kind of included in our vows, which was crazy.
Without even knowing.
Without knowing. So I think it goes to show how far we've come, and I think if you in a lot of, I have to also say, in a lot of those little disagreements, Justin would get very discouraged. You were like, this isn't what I signed up for. And I'm like, but this is normal. These growing pains, I used to have to remind you, as if you're not here. Yeah. I used to have to remind you that this is normal. This is stuff that we have to work through, and we have to find ways. We have to find our rhythm of dance in it all, because if we can't do that, we're going to have so much more adversity and disagreements and all of that stuff come up in our relationship, and we need to go through this because that's what's going to build trust for us in those moments.
Totally. And that brings us all full circle in how we started this, which was just because you found the one, your soulmate, whatever you want to call that person, it doesn't mean that everything's just going to be, glittering with gold and rose petal and all this stuff. And that was something that was a hard reality for me, because I realized that it's going to take work. My little half-ass ways that I used to do that I sometimes got away with were not going to work here. I was not going to get away with them. So it's really important.
I think for anybody that looks at our relationship from afar right now, like, it's important to know that we went through some...
Still are.
We go through moments of chaos and disagreements and just all of that stuff. And the one thing that we continue to do is we are committed to us, and we push through, we work through, and we find ways to do it together. And that's important.
And I want to wrap this segment up with a quote that Mark gave us or gave me one time. We were actually going through it, you and I, and I went to his house. We watched football together, and
Mark's my guy best friend, by the way.
He said, it's not if, it's when you're going to have problems in your marriage. It's just how you come up with solutions, how quickly you come up with solutions, how you manage your expectation level of we're going to argue. Just prepare yourself for that. See, and I wasn't. I was like, we shouldn't be arguing about towels. We shouldn't be arguing whatever. And he said, just know that, and the rest will be easier. Because if you have that expectation, you're not going to be it's not going to be that much of a disappointment when it
Yeah.
Brings it to
I agree.
the table.
And I've always known that for me.
Yeah.
I definitely have always known that. And I think that I always feared that you would easily give up because when things got hard. And for me, love is like when things get hard, that's when you push through, and that's when your relationship is really tested. Yeah. So when I felt like our relationship was being tested and you were kind of checking out or whatever, it was hard. Yeah. I think it's so important in a relationship for people to learn how to fight together, learn how to use your triggers and traumas as something that brings you closer together and not divides you as a couple. Yeah. And just realizing that it's you and your partner against the problem and not the problem that's in between you and your partner.
Got some Shay's gems, babe.
Yeah.
That's really good. And I really want to emphasize that I encourage you, if you have some opportunity and you have a potential guy or girl, learn how they fight. Learn how they need and want to be communicated with in times of disagreement. Again, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. So how does your person fight? And it's like funny because if someone would have told me that early on in our relationship, I'd have been like, what the hell? Like, we're not going to fight, or I don't want to fight. It's like, no one wants to fight, but you're going to, right? So
yeah, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable. Learn how you fight with your partner. And it's so important. We are huge advocates of the 5 love languages. I wonder if is there a love language book for communication?
Perhaps.
Or maybe we should create one.
I don't know.
But anyways,
coming soon, 2022.
It's just so important. It's so important because now that when I'm hot, like, don't get hot with me because this is not gonna be good. Like you have a way of like calming me down without telling me to calm down. You have a way of, instead of instigating or adding to the problem, to diffuse the problem. I know at times where I just gotta let you talk. I gotta let you over explain. See, I'm just triggered. I gotta let you over explain with your Libra self problems in situations and whatever your side of the story is. I also now realize I have to let you give your side of the story. Believe it or not, I did not do that back in the day.
No.
So all in all, learn how your partner fights. But how does one learn instead of in the moment, right? How does one learn before the problem arises that each other fight?
That's tough for me. I think I've naturally just have always been more somebody that kind of shuts down when I'm being triggered in a sense. So I think that worked well for us in the beginning because I was never somebody that fights back. It takes a lot for me to get to that point. I have in the past where I'm like, I say something back.
You run from confrontation. I run towards it.
Yeah, but I also shut down. So I think that when I see you getting very heated, it brings me into myself. And instead I'm saying all these things in my head, You're
like that little girl. You remember that video? No. It was like a little black girl. She was like 9 years old and she had her Barbie dolls up. Oh, yeah. And she was like, I'm here. I'm here. Say something. Like, that's probably you in the closet.
So it would get me. It would take a lot for somebody to get me to where I'm like, I'm here in person. I'm very composed, I would say.
Well, Los had a great analogy one time, I'll never forget, and he said, I'm like a duck on the water, where at the surface level it looks like I'm just floating, I'm just cruising, but underneath the water my feet are going crazy. Like, that's kind of you.
Yeah.
And what's ironic is, I think if you got loud with me, or you got like as hot as I get, I actually think I would step down.
Oh, you have? Because I have gotten hot and loud with you, and your face would be priceless.
By the way, I know we're sitting down right now if you guys are watching. I'm 6'1". Shay's, go ahead.
I'm 5'5" with brown eyes.
What? Don't be lying to the people, babe. You just got here.
I'm 5'3.5".
She's like
on a good day.
5'2".
No, I am not 5'2".
On a normal day.
No, doctors have measured me, and I am 5'3".
The point is, imagine like a David and Goliath situation where like someone, like if Shay got loud. Anyways.
No, but I have gotten to that point with you.
Yeah.
And I watched your face.
Like, what the hell?
You were like,
where's my wife? And what have you done with her?
And I've never felt so empowered.
You're like, yeah.
Start pounding my chest. Okay,
I'll try to get that on camera next time.
Bringing it back.
I'll try to get
No,
it on
I
camera.
have gone to those moments with you, and you know, I stood up and stood on my stool.
Literally. On the last step, the top step.
Okay.
Oh man.
Can we bring it back?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have the giggles now.
Let's tell them like another funny joke, and then we'll get serious.
What?
About what we do now that like helps us,
so
and how it started.
I created because sometimes he gets me so worked up where I literally just want to either scream or say what do you ever like you're in a moment with somebody and they're really pissing you off.
I'll bleep it out.
They're really pissing you off and you just want to say shut the up. One day that shut the up just came out and he looked at me like, are you serious right now? And I was like, no, I was totally joking, but it felt so good.
So you weren't joking?
No, I was not joking, but I was scared to tell you that I was that I was serious. I mean, but the amount of release that I felt in that moment by like just letting it out, I couldn't even explain. So from that point on, I was like, wow, that actually like did something for me.
Yeah, and so now when we like it, I mean, you have to.
So I think like the third time I did it, I ended up telling him like, that feels really good.
Like you should try it.
I was like, you should try that. So we've gotten to places and it really helps diffuse a hot like tension in the room. So we now do that word.
I mean, like don't like they got to read the room.
And if you got kids, like
that too. But you got to read the room. There's a time, there's a place to like, you know, lighten the mood. You can't just be hot, be like you know, like you can't do that.
No.
So
there's times where I just feel like I'm very easily agitated, and usually that's when I do it in those moments because I want to shed light on how I'm feeling, and I don't want him to take it seriously, but it's kind of how I'm feeling. I'm just like, shut up or get the away from me. Like I want to slice your throat right now.
Yeah. And we've said that. I've looked at you and been like, I'm gonna open up the balcony and just let you dangle.
Or
and then
I know that I'm irritating you, so I'll be like, how would you kill me right now?
Yeah. Okay.
And you're like, actually,
I got a whole script.
And it really just helps diffuse the mood, though.
Hannibal
and
Lecter.
It's been like our saving grace in a lot of moments.
I'll start calling you Clarice. Anyways, okay. In all seriousness, to really help these people out, I want to get back to what you said, which is it's us versus the problem, not us against each other. I think that's amazing and so important. To add even more to that, our therapist our marital therapist used to tell us, you guys need to, again, I said this earlier, run towards each other and not towards the problem. Because that's what we would do. We would just be so honed in on the problem and not us, you know. And
we would allow it to conquer ourselves and divide our relationship.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing you can do. And mind you, it's something that I personally struggle with all the time because we're human beings. It's so natural for us to want to defend ourselves when we're feeling attacked or we're feeling like something in our relationship is falling apart or wrong or whatever it is. So naturally we want to defend that. And I think that in those moments you really have to remind yourself, like, we're on the same team. We're both, we have the same goals.
Yep.
We want the same things for our relationship. And whether it's like an issue that you're dealing with that, let's say if I'm a jealous person, and I have jealousy issues based on all of my past relationships and like, and I'm easily triggered by certain things. it's your partner's responsibility to know that about you and be sensitive towards it and help you work through it. And it's my responsibility to also be able to manage and process those feelings in the best way I can. And if I can't on my own, I can then come to my partner and be like, listen, I know you didn't do anything wrong, but this made me feel a certain way, and I'm like having a hard time processing and dealing with that. And I'm asking for reassurance on whatever it is.
And to add to that, because you're doing so well, honey, if you're new here, listening or watching, I had an episode with Duke. It was episode number 5, called The Vulnerable Renaissance Man. And in that episode, I talked about another hack that our marital therapist gave us, which was when it's sunny outside and you're having the best day of your life in your relationship or your marriage, that's when you want to sit down, make a list as to how you want and need to be communicated with in times of conflict, how you need and want to fight to come up with a solution to the issue in times of conflict. You don't want to be sitting down trying to figure this out when conflict arises.
No.
You want to prevent the conflict, right? So that was so important. So important, in fact, we never did it. We never actually sat down and wrote this out. So I'm giving this advice.
I think,
and we're not even taking it.
I feel like we did in a way. I feel like we came up with.
I think we verbalized it to one another. I think it's like an understood thing, but we didn't actually sit down and make a list.
No, we didn't make a list, but I think we did talk about like when we're in a heated moment, we really need to separate and allow ourselves the time to filter through what we're feeling, manage those feelings, and then regroup when we're ready to, when the fire is a little less hot.
I mean, at the end of the day, you always want to respond. You don't want to react.
Yeah.
You want to respond. You don't react. You want to just cool down, like you said, try to get your hindsight as quickly as you can, and then sit down and have the conversation. It's also, and I always say this, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about what's right or wrong for our relationship.
Absolutely. I think communication is key too. The more you can communicate with your partner, whether it's allowing them inside your thought process and your triggers and your traumas and then your partner's responsibility to accept that about you and hold that space for you, whether it's, if you're triggered off of like your ex cheating on you or you're triggered off of your ex not trusting you or whatever the case is, childhood traumas. Like, I think you have to be sensitive and hold that space and have that respect for that person and understand them from that level of who they are and how, and the stuff they've been through to, as to why they feel the way that they feel.
And a large part of that is, the person you're trying to help out. So let's be very specific. It was you for me. You were trying to help me out with a lot of stuff. I had way more trauma, way more triggers than you did. And a lot of them stemmed from childhood. I used to think they were about my exes, but even with them, it was from childhood. And the only way I was able to navigate through all of that was through therapy. Through therapy, I was able to dissect, unpack, become aware, accept was the biggest thing with my pride and ego. For the guys out there, again, listening or watching. And it was nice to have, so I did a lot of individual personal therapy, but then when we were going to marital therapy, and even now, it's nice that you're with me to hear and be a fly on the wall kind of thing. Cause I think you're going to know then when something does happen, you're like, oh, actually, I remember that's when he told our therapist, blah, blah, blah. And you know how to handle it. But therapy for the win. Because it was such a solution to so many, if not all of my problems, at least personally. And we're still, going to therapy. And I encourage everyone, like, don't make the mistake of going to therapy when it's too late.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I even recommend couples that are in like the best place ever. Like even right now, I feel like you and I are in a very good place and we're still seeking that therapy and that guidance and that, to allow us to, if hits the fan one day, we're prepared and we're ready for it.
Totally. And it also too, like, because we want to have kids. So it's, I mean, that's a large reason as to why I'm steadily in therapy, because I'm like, I do not want to repeat anything that I haven't repaired from my childhood to our children. So there's a lot of benefits to therapy. Again, I agree with you. Even if everything is great, it's just you want to go to therapy to maintain that level of greatness, to prevent anything from affecting that level of greatness.
So what happens if there's a partner that doesn't want to go to therapy? What do you do?
Well, luckily we don't have that issue, but I am sure it's common. I'm sure a lot of people who can relate to that. Number one, I want to say you can't force someone to go to therapy, nor should you want to. You shouldn't want to, because you don't want them to go with resentment, with, a negative thought or narrative in their head about, I'm only here because she or he's making us do this. Like, you don't want to be doing that kind of stuff. You're just wasting.
I'm too good for this.
Yeah, you're wasting your time, and more importantly, you're wasting your money. So you can't force someone to go to therapy. The other thing is, if there are situations that are that bad in your relationship, and you know damn well you've given it all you have, and you've really tried to come up with all the solutions possible, and you're like, look, the last resort is therapy, and that other person still does not want to go, that's kind of the writing on the wall as far as if you should continue this relationship or not. Yeah. Because that just tells it, like, if that were you, right? If you're the one that's like, I'm not going, and we're like really bad, but I know there's potential and all this stuff. I mean, again, I'm just like, well, damn, like, she doesn't want it as much as I do, because I'm going to therapy to get better individually, as a husband, as a father to my daughter now, as a father to our kids later. So I'm doing it not just for me, but for us. Yeah. And if you can't give me that in return, I'm out. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to simplify it like that, but I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I am out. And
me personally, I feel that most people that are against therapy, they have yet to even unlock that door that brings them to the deeper level of themselves. And they might be very much afraid to do that.
I was going to say, I think they're very aware of what that door looks like. I think they may have peeked inside that room. Yeah. And I think they're like, oh no, I'm not going through it. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do about that as a partner on the receiving end of that. There's nothing you can do, again, to force that person to walk through that door, face their issues, and try to work through them.
But it's so sad, because not only when you leave that door shut, not only is it preventing you from getting to a deeper level with your partner, but it's truly preventing you from getting to a deeper level within yourself, whether it's any relationship you're going to have in your life, whether it's relatives, whether it's
friendships,
friendship, work relationship, or a significant other that you're trying to build with, or your kids. Like, you're never going to be able to reach that potential and reach the best version of yourself without unlocking that door.
100%.
And you will always think what you're fighting about, or what is surfacing in your life, is exactly what it is. And you'll never know the true root of what it really is.
And that's sad. And maybe it's not going to therapy, right? Like, if someone's like, therapy's extreme, or I have a bad experience with therapy, like, no problem. But you do have to learn how to communicate. You have to learn, again, we'll write the book.
And compromise.
Yeah. Compromise. Yeah. And be empathetic to, come on now, babe. See?
Oh, you're pulling on my heartstrings.
Come on now.
I love hearing that word. Say it again. It's like, talk dirty to me. Oh. Go ahead.
There's nothing that I'd rather do than be empathetic to you. I want to be closer to you than shoes with no laces. Words with no spaces. Babe, here's the thing. I went to the doctor today, and he told me I was lacking
Vitamin U.
The name's Justin. Some Spice Adams.
Oh anyways. My gosh. See what I have to put up with?
Okay. Wait till we have a little boy, babe. I'm telling you.
Oh my gosh.
Little man's going to be smooth. Okay.
His teacher is going to be like, it was really interesting, because today he told me he wanted to be closer to me than words with no spaces.
Yeah. We're like, oh, my man. I'm going to be like, what's the problem? Okay. Moving on. So because of all the work we continue to do, and the work that led up to us even deciding to get married. The way we used to fight back then versus the way we fight now, the way we used to communicate or lack thereof back then versus the way we communicate now is night and day. I mean, I don't want to say I look forward to arguing with you, but I'm now aware that whatever the problem is, whatever the issue is, now that we have some of these really good tools that work for us, once we find the lesson in the issue or the problem, it's just going to be something we can add to the foundation of what we're currently trying to build. And so that's why I get excited to find the solution. I don't get excited to fight with you, but I definitely get excited to finding and coming up with the right solution for this particular problem.
I do have to say, because of therapy, not only do we fight less, but when we fight, it's diffused a lot faster. Like before, how we fought before, it would start from something so little and it would last for days, where on the third day I'd be like, what started this?
Yeah. What are we even fighting about?
Yeah. And it was crazy to me how big it's become. And I never fought like that with somebody. I never had something so small blow up to be so big. I was always in relationships where I was able to diffuse them. And the challenging thing with you was I had no control over that. Like you would blow it up to be so big, and then you would work yourself up, and then it would last for days, sometimes weeks. Yeah. And now, thankfully, not only do we fight less, but we don't even, I feel like the time frame of how long it lasts is so minimal. It doesn't even go past a day sometimes.
But that goes back to the top of the episode. It had nothing to do with whatever little thing we were bickering about. It was a deep rooted issue that I at the time didn't know how to articulate that feeling and bring it to surface and bring it to light. And also a lot of the growing pains, I'm sure you can remember this, that I would bring up and I would complain about, I used to follow up the complaint with, I didn't sign up for this. I don't know if this is going to work. You know, it was like a threat.
Yeah.
Almost when but that was just me.
And in that moment, that actually became a trigger for me, because it brought me back to the very reasons why I didn't want to advance our relationship so fast. Right. Because I didn't think you were in that place, and I knew you were going to become that person. And when you did, I was like, this is exactly why. Yeah.
But that, like I said, for me, I know I did that because I was trying to take control of, if it wasn't going to work out, I wanted to be the one to end it because I didn't want to be hurt. I didn't want to, like I had to be in control of that exit door, so to speak. It was just something that I have been accustomed to in the past of, making something almost like self-sabotaging in the relationship, because at the time, man, that's all I knew how to do, unfortunately.
It's really fascinating to me, because I feel like with a lot of men, they struggle filtering through their emotions, and the one that they resort to is anger. So they could be feeling jealous, they could be feeling sad, and instead of expressing those feelings, they allow the anger to take over, because that's the one that they're most comfortable expressing, because they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to admit that they're jealous, not even to themselves.
Yeah. Also, the reason why I think we resort to it is because it's the easiest one. It's hard for anyone, let alone men, to sit down in our thoughts, think about, am I hurt right now, or am I angry? Am I sad, and do I fear she's going to leave me, or am I angry? You know what I mean?
So, am I jealous, or am I angry?
Yeah. Or am I jealous, or am I just a little insecure? But at the end of the day, we're like, oh, I'm angry. It's easier to express that emotion than it is to express, can we sit down and talk? You actually really hurt my feelings. Like, how many times it's funny to see, it's funny, but it's not though. It's really not, because it's sad that, for men, unfortunately, we can't just sit down and say exactly what it is. You know what, babe?
But I don't even think a lot of times you guys are aware that you're.
But I'm telling you, even if we are aware, you're still probably not gonna get that sentence. Yeah. And you laughed because I don't know how many men you've heard. You know what? You really hurt my feelings.
You know what? And there's times where I feel like I did hurt your feelings, but you made it about something else, and you got angry, and then it turned into this big thing.
Because it's easier to do. It's easier to do that than it is to let go of the ego, let go of the pride, and just say, you know what? You hurt my feelings, or you know what? I don't really agree with that, and here's why.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
and that's why it's important to go to therapy.
It's important to go to therapy, but the first thing in order to get to therapy is self-awareness. So I think we talked a lot about our growing pains individually, collectively.
Yeah.
I think, you know, being that we addressed those issues, I think we hopefully brought some solutions. As that's always the goal, is to provide some solutions in every episode. And, you know, I think the biggest takeaway for me, and this is a reminder to continue to implement in our marriage, is it's not if, it's when something's going to happen. We're going to be faced with some type of problem, but it's how we come up with a solution, how quickly we come up with a solution, and how we come up with a sustainable solution. That's another thing too we didn't really touch on, is like a lot of times people just, to save face and to stop arguing, are like, okay, you're right, or okay, I'm sorry. But that's not sustainable. That's what you didn't learn from that.
And you'll end up building up a resentment.
Yeah, that too. So be genuine and be true to how you're feeling about whatever it is. Understand, is it about...
Be accepting to your partners.
Yeah. And be empathetic. Back to that. But also just understand, is it about the bath towels, or is it about the fact that I've never lived with a man before? He's coming in very opinionated. He likes interior design as much as I do. That's a first. You know what I'm saying? Like, just understand what the root of the issue is. And don't suppress your feelings to build up resentment. And also just learn how to communicate how you feel to your partner. Learn what they need and what they want. Learn how they need and want to fight, because you're going to fight. And just know that at the end of the day, depending on how the severity of the situation, odds are you're going to get stronger. It's going to bring you closer together.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I think there's something so magical that happens after a fight. If you fight the right way, you feel closer together, because you guys were able to both release how you were feeling and talk about it and get to a place that is ultimately higher than where you were before.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting to that place after a fight, something is wrong. Somebody is not expressing themselves truthfully, and somebody is probably throwing something under the rug. Somebody is probably building up resentment.
Or someone doesn't want to contribute as much to the relationship as you do.
Because when you do come together in those moments, you come out on a higher level, and it feels so empowering for your relationship.
So,
Growing
pains, and maybe homework for you guys, and feel free to leave these in the comments. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave it in a review. Also give your boy and your girl a 5-star rating. We just want to hear from you guys. You know, how did this help you? Could you relate to this? Are there certain things that you guys are currently going through that you would consider growing pains, or hopefully not, but worse? Are you guys at the brink of a situation where you're thinking it's beyond repair, therapy won't even help you? Or have you tried to talk to your partner before and they're just anti-therapy, so on and so forth? Let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. Turn on your notifications, hit that like button, which is the thumbs up. On that note, appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we will see you next time. All right. So welcome to the bonus content. We decided to switch rooms, and we decided to answer some of the few of the questions that I get in my DMs. And we had a lengthy question where we will keep her anonymous, but she shared her story. It's very, very intimate, very personal. And we appreciate you inquiring. We appreciate you asking the question. And it means a lot to us to try to be able to give you some type of solutions. So Shay's going to read the text message, and it's also on the screen right now. Go ahead, honey.
Hey, JD. First, I just want to say thanks again for starting your podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this from a male's perspective. And since my recent ex had similar unhealthy qualities that you expressed in your podcast of gaslighting, lies, possibly even cheating.
Probably cheating.
Wait, what?
I'm telling you, he was probably cheating. Go ahead.
Thanks for all the honesty, by the way. He's had childhood trauma and military trauma where the relationship turned very toxic, codependent, and unhealthy on both parts, where we finally decided to break up right before the pandemic. Yikes. 6 months into the breakup, he's dating someone else, takes her on trips, and even buys a pet with his girl, after he said he wanted to work on himself after the breakup. It sucks how well he's showing this girl better commitment this early on than he's shown me when we first started dating. I feel lost. He told me all of these things of wanting to marry me and starting a family together, and that he's never felt this way about anyone before, yet even after the breakup, he's already doing all of this with another girl. Back in September, he still was saying how much he misses me and then takes the new girl on a trip for Thanksgiving. It's been a year since the breakup. I've gone to therapy, worked on myself, and went through one of the hardest years of my life in 2020. I can't seem to shake how it feels so unfair with how well he's taking things and moving on. I don't know how else to move past the hurt, anger, and resentment I feel towards him.
Well, that's heavy. Again, we appreciate you sharing that story. I'm sure it was hard to relive those feelings and those emotions. You want to start, Liv?
I mean, her last sentence alone, where she doesn't know how to move past the anger, hurt, and resentment, I think you are definitely on the right track with seeking therapy and diving deeper within yourself. I always tell people, the more you can build yourself, the easier it will be to walk away from things that are not serving you. And it sounds like no matter how much somebody tells somebody that they want to marry them, they want to start a family, and he's never felt this way before, if he's also at the same time gaslighting you, lying to you, and possibly cheating, that's not somebody that's serving you in the best ways that you deserve to be served. So I think with that alone, you really just have to use this time to focus on yourself, dig deeper, build your confidence, know that you are worthy and you are deserving to have somebody to treat you in the best ways possible. And when a man comes along and he's not able to do those things, you are easily able to walk away from that and know that you have no regrets and there is nothing that you are losing in that moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful and really well said. And I know it's going to help. I think also I'll just add, don't take this personally. How he's treating you and how he treated you and what he put you through, don't take it personally. I'm sure, I'm not saying you're perfect. It takes two to tango, but the gaslighting, the lies, I'm saying probably cheating, from the sound of it, you can't take it personally. This has nothing to, those things don't have anything to do with you. It has everything to do with him. And unfortunately for him, he's going to be in for a rude awakening when he realizes that the grass is not always greener. He can't continue to take the same bad patterns, mistakes, etc., and into a new relationship and expect new results. He's running from his own issues that he needs to work on. And unfortunately, along his run, he's bringing all of this baggage and eventually it's going to cause some damage from girl to girl to girl. And it's sad because I'm sure he might mean well. He may have a slight intention to want to be better, but I think it sounds like once he realized how much work it actually takes to get to that point, he's like, I'm good. I'd rather just try it with someone else. And hopefully they don't trigger me. And hopefully they don't remind me of my traumas and remind me of my bad patterns and bad habits like she did. And that's, like I said, sad. It's very immature. But regardless, again, this has nothing to do with you. So do not take that personally from him.
It's obvious that he's filling voids. And for him to fill these voids, he uses people to do that. And it helps him to take the focus off of him because truly, like as much as he says he wants to work on himself, he's obviously not doing that. So I think that, and for him to be with this other girl and be telling you that he still misses you, and then 2 months later, he's on a trip with this girl, like obviously you should feel more confident in knowing like that is definitely not the man I want, because even for as sad as it is for you, it's now sad for that girl that he's with. So I wouldn't even envy what she has with him because it's nothing of what you deserve or ultimately would want in a guy.
Exactly. If and when, I'm going to bet when he comes back to you.
Hey, stranger.
The hey, stranger text. I've been thinking about you text, so on and so forth. Know your worth, as Shay said earlier on. Know your value and know what you deserve. And this isn't it. Mm-hmm. This is not it. There are plenty of men out here, I promise you, who are good guys, who mean well, who have great intentions, who can give you the healthy challenge, is what you're referring to, and who can uplift you and give you what you deserve and treat you how you deserve. So just make sure you don't fall into the trap, because it's exactly what it would be.
Yeah, I would conclude it with that. If you could take anything from this, just focus on yourself right now. Build that confidence and know your worth. And the more you can have that, the easier it will be to not put up with any of the BS.
Yeah, you'll be able to spot it and smell it from a mile away.
And you'll be able to walk away from it so easy without even looking back.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I hope that helped you. Thank you again for the message. We appreciate it. And good job, honey.
Thanks.
Answering the questions.